Not as much as here, but tonight's supposed to be live.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting. It's Wednesday, July the 12th, 2023. I would recognize if council has any pecuniary interest, you declare it at the appropriate time. Before we begin, a couple announcements. First of all, I'd like to recognize Enniskillen's Senior of the Year, Morris Ma. Morris served on as the representative to Plympton-Wyoming's cemetery board for many years. As well, he was involved in the Agricultural Society as well as many other agricultural groups and boards throughout his career. We congratulate him on that. Also, I'd like to express our personal condolences to our deputy mayor on her recent loss. Our thoughts are with you, deputy.
Thank you.
And a trivia one that I'm sure everybody's waited for. Today is National Jello Day. Share that with your family and they'll be excited. So we're going to move along. Clerk, item number 3. Do we have any delegations this evening?
Not this time.
All right, declare that one closed. Item number 4.1, council. I have a motion by Councillor Wolvette, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, that the minutes be adopted by council and those confidential minutes of the closed sessions of council remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. That would be our planning council meeting minutes of June 26, 2023. Our closed planning committee meeting minutes of June 26, 2023. Our regular council meeting minutes of June 28, 2023. And our closed regular council meeting minutes of June 28, 2023. Council, you've all had an opportunity to review them. Are there any questions? Any concerns? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It carries. Okay, council, we're going to go to item 5 next on the agenda, business arising from the previous meetings. I have a motion by first one is 5.1. Motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Bojan, that council direct staff to send a letter of support to Enbridge for the Southern Lake Huron IRP pilot project. Council, as you're aware, we had a presentation at our last meeting from 2 gentlemen from Enbridge relating to that. Are there any questions, concerns, clerk, and then deputy, and then Councillor Rodriguez? Sorry.
Just want to let you know there are representatives online from Enbridge again.
Oh, okay.
Different, I think one person may be different than was last time. So just if council has any questions, they're there.
Boy, we're getting great representative from Enbridge. That's good. Councillor Rodriguez. You have a question?
Questions?
Okay.
Thank you. So this comes from people in the community as well who had questions on your submission for support. So I wanted to direct my questions to the people from Enbridge. So one question is, can you confirm that participation in the proposed pilot project will be voluntary for residents?
Yes, confirmed.
Next question, what is the expected duration for the pilot project?
It will be 3 to 5 years, depending on the success, and we will reassess year by year as we go. We're filing an application with the OEB next week. We hope to have a decision by the end of this calendar year, which would allow us to start implementation next year in 2024.
Will the participants be required to have a new smart thermostat installed in their homes?
Only for one of the alternatives, which is called demand response. The other ones will not, no.
Will this device be provided by Enbridge at no cost to the participants? So the smart thermostat.
Yes.
Does Enbridge plan to access and monitor these smart thermostats remotely?
Yes.
Does Enbridge foresee the need to adjust the smart thermostats remotely as part of the proposed project?
Yes, for that particular alternative, it will be, Enbridge would control the thermostat, but would give the homeowner or business a notice of an event if we were calling it.
Can you confirm that the proposed pilot project will be limited to enhanced energy efficiency and demand response, DR, or will other system options such as injecting compressed natural gas or the installation of local storage of liquefied natural gas be included?
At this time, it's the ETEE and the demand response, but there may be a need for compressed natural gas injection down the road. So we'll visit that at a later date if we need to.
Okay, if compressed or liquefied natural gas storage is constructed, I guess the following questions would probably relate to discussions down the road then, is kind of what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, we put a station, we put a tanker right near our station. It wouldn't be obtrusive or cause any harm to anybody, but we would definitely talk to the municipality first before we did anything.
Okay, thank you. I guess I would just like to say that I guess my concerns with supporting this are that there's really not a lot of, there's a lot of questions, more questions than there are answers. So it's kind of like a general support. And it's inclusive of monitoring how people are using their heat and stuff like that is one thing, but then you're including the possibility of putting in these different types of natural gas sites to expand down the road, inclusive kind of with this support, without us really understanding what that looks like. And I guess that's where my concern is in general. So if it was just separate of monitoring maybe people's habits, I would be in support, but I can't be with it. There's just too many open questions. And I go back to thinking of industrial turbines. You know, we say yes now and then find out some stuff down the road and we don't like it. We can't really do anything about it. So, and I think that bothers me a little. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Rodriguez. Any other questions, Council? Councilor Van Clever, do you have a question?
Nothing free serving.
Anything else? Is there anything that you'd like to add from Enbridge? You've heard some of our questions, you've heard some concerns. Is there anything that you want to add before I call for the vote?
Yeah, maybe just 2 points. So one on the CNG front, we do it today. We actually put CNG trailers in particular communities, typically out in a rural setting at our existing, not compressor station, but our measurement station. So it's not something that's new to us. And it is definitely not used on an everyday basis. It's only when there's a really, really cold peak day is when that would be used. And again, it's not part of the plan at this point with this particular project, but it may be down the road. And on the controlling just of the thermostats, that's definitely a program that we're looking at. It is used in the United States. It's not so much used on that in the natural gas sector, but we're going to try it here based on the directions from the OEB. And would only be monitoring the actual thermostat and controlling the heat. But again, we let the homeowner know when that peak event was going to be called. And we'd be basically turning their thermostat down at a particular point or preheating their home before the event. So those are my 2 main points.
One question that I do realize that I had you, and I may have overlooked it in the process, the term for this contract or this deal that we want to work with on that. What is that? Is that for a 4-year, 3-year term? Or, and if once we sign up, do we have the option, our people have the option of getting out?
Yes, it's going to be optional. So once we start the program and we start to see the results, they'll definitely be an optional. The main part of the ETE though will be like people insulating their homes, better windows and doors, better air sealing. So those are permanent, right? We're not going to come back and take the insulation out. It's really the demand response program that we would probably take away if it wasn't working as we had hoped. But everything else would of course remain with the homeowner in terms of the insulation, windows and air sealing and those types of things.
So I know some of the residents are going to be asking, if they haven't already, if you are encouraging the installation of the windows, doors, is there any programs out there they can jump on board with to help that out.
Yeah, do you want to cover that off real quick, Whitney, please?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if you're familiar, we do have our existing demand side management, sort of like the energy conservation programs. So what really we're trying to do with the pilot is to top up those incentives and just make that cover more of those costs to really encourage participants or customers within the area to participate in these programs. So we have contractors that are out there, service providers who would then help the customer navigate how to get the incentives, how to move forward with the upgrades and all of that.
I think that's very important for our people to know, because if you want somebody to spend some money, they need to know if there's what options are available and how they can save money. You know,
Yes.
whether they're getting a deal on windows insulation or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. So as part of kind of the broader program plan that as we're putting forward to the Ontario Energy Board in our application, we've detailed out, different marketing methods, different engagement with local service providers and contractors, and also just to increase the awareness of these programs, what the incentive levels are, how we can help and support to make sure customers, to make it as easy as possible for customers to participate in these programs.
I don't think we have the horse before the cart, but I think what we're looking at here is basically a letter of support. And then at the end of that, you would come back to us with more of the meat of the presentation. We still, at that time, have the option whether we are out or in, and our residents do as well. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I guess once we receive the OEB decision, then we'd be back to you with a better plan in terms of timing and what it would look like. And then, yeah, I suppose you could say you don't really want to take part in this. I think you will be happy with the plans, though. I think the residents will be thrilled with the incentives they receive and the energy savings that they'd actually be achieving with these plans as well.
So basically, this is just a letter of support for you to move forward.
Yes.
All right. No other questions? Okay, council, call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, thank you very much. Our staff will be back to you if you need something on that as we proceed forward then.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Good. Thank you for joining with us.
Thank you.
Okay, council, let's go to item 5.2. Motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez. That council create a Plympton-Wyoming Agricultural Advisory Committee and the staff draft of terms of reference for the committee. I believe, clerk.
Sorry, that must have got shuffled in the motions, Your Worship. That should be moved by Councillor Belgian.
That's Councillor Bojan's notice of motion.
Yeah,
Did you want to?
sure. Sorry, John.
That's okay.
You want to sign that?
It's moving.
I don't see Councillor Basie not here to help you.
Thank
All
you.
right, let me reread that. A motion by Councillor Bojan, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez. The council created Plympton-Wyoming Agricultural Advisory Committee and that staff drafted terms of reference for the advisory committee. Both mover and seconder okay with that change. Okay, Councillor Bojan, we did have a chance to read the report. I will open it up for for discussion amongst your council members, or is there a presentation you want to add to it?
The only thing I would add, I know we talked about it really quickly when I brought it forward at the last meeting, and I included that draft terms of reference just strictly to help articulate the way that my brain saw this concept. Certainly we can fine tune that and land somewhere else. But essentially it's no surprise that farming and agriculture is clearly huge in Plympton-Wyoming. And it's something that I've heard a lot in terms of just an open channel of communication between council and the agricultural community. When we talk about terms of reference and advisory committee, it gets very structured and formal, but that's just the world of municipal government. I think in reality, it can be the most simple, volunteer-based advisory committee with a certain number of representatives. When we're talking about the Lambton County opening their OP, we start doing new OPs in the future. All of that decision-making has impact on agriculture. So I just think it's really nice to have something in place so that if there's people in that community that want to be at the table when we want advice on how does this implicate or impact agriculture, that there's a avenue for that. And that's kind of where this came from.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to put that together. As I shared with you last meeting, the county is going to be charging their agriculture advisory committee in the fall. So, a step ahead. I guess thing that I like about it, it's something for education, communication, and information. 3 important points that I think need to be in that as well. Would you see this as being a committee to recommend and suggest back to council? Is that what your thoughts are be on that, council?
I think, and strictly based on the feedback that I got before getting to this point, is even if it's just a matter of council has questions about something in the agricultural world that we just don't know about, that there's that formal channel to ask for clarification, if it's asking for advice. So I know Councilor Rodriguez has mentioned in the past, on-site, on-farm diversification, just as an example. If we wanted to kind of hone in on that and figure out, let's have a strategy for on-farm diversification, then we can use this committee to say, what do you see as roadblocks? Like, how can we improve? So I think it could be a kind of two-way communication method. And if it ends up being a recommendation to council, and then council can take that and discuss it, I can certainly see it going that way as well.
The other question I had too, you mentioned possibility of up to 10 residents. You think that number is high? You okay with that?
It's a bit high. I base that on some of the other surrounding areas that had similar advisory committees. And I use the word up to rather than having a set number, because if you don't get, even if it was up to 8, for example, and we got 6 really involved people, I think that's totally fine. That's why I kind of went with that language of up to. And if you got 10 people from all different areas of agriculture, I think that'd be great. But I don't think we have to make sure we have 10. That's why I've used that language.
You did good work on that. That is, as you're aware, this is a notice of motion, so it'll come forward at the next meeting. Right.
This is
This is it now?
Yep.
Okay. Deputy?
Is, if you're reviving the advisory committee at the county, is necessary, is this not more like a duplication if we have another one here? Or I'm just asking, I'm not criticizing, okay? But would it, well, I'm trying to be nice.
It's all good.
What do you think?
Well, I asked the question at the county about it, and they were going to dig up their terms of reference, what it was and what the job of it was. And I don't have that information yet.
And if I may, I would just add to that, I think from the agricultural community themselves, I think, I mean, a farmer themselves isn't sitting here at this table, but they want to be able to contribute or have conversations with council in a more formal way. It's just more direct, Plympton-Wyoming Advisory Committee. And then if the county ends up getting on board and they have a formal one countywide, I think that's great too, if it gets there. But I do see value in having a local one for us as a resource, as informal as it needs to be.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Roshan. So yes, I totally support this. And as Councilor Bowman said, like when we get into diversified uses and agri services, this advisory committee would be tremendous in helping form or having input as to what it is the community even wants to see happen or not happen. So that's important to have that engagement. I'd kind of like to see it a little bit more diversified in the participants, in the sense that we do have a lot of smaller parcels of farmland in Plympton-Wyoming, where they're agriculturally zoned, but they're not necessarily that big farmer. They do the silo restaurant as an example, right? So they might not feel like they're included. We kind of in the wording of it. So I don't know, do you know what I mean, Counselor? Paul? Because I've heard from different little smaller, people that live on agricultural land, but aren't really using it for necessarily agricultural purposes. But those lands are, to me, very valuable in the sense that they have the opportunity to promote our agricultural land and help sustain it long-term. By using it in added value services. To give that appreciation of the bigger surrounding farmlands, if that makes sense. Yeah, so, whether it just means adding a couple of residents or in the agricultural, like something in the wording to kind of help that.
Okay, thank you. To my left, Councillor Wolvet.
I think it's a good idea. I think there will be some opposing thoughts between the county and the municipality. We've seen some of that here in the past when it came to severances. One will say we don't want any severances. Some of your locals, as we've been dealing with here lately in our official plans and stuff, will support smaller severance packages and stuff like that. So I think you'll get some opposition, but I think it will spark some pretty interesting discussions. And just touching on what Kristen said there a little bit, I think whoever's on this committee should be from all aspects of agriculture, including a greenhouse, small farm operation, whether it's dairy or whatever. Shouldn't be any restrictions put on there to size. And I think it should be strictly agricultural. You don't want to get a group going that's got, city residents versus, you don't want that kind of an argument going on. You want advice on whatever the topics come up. So I think it's a great idea. It's been talked about here for the past few years. And I know I was just on an LFA, Lambda Federation of Agricultural tour here a couple of weeks ago, a bus tour that took municipal politicians from throughout the county. And that's one thing I heard loud and clear, that municipalities need to listen more carefully to the agricultural community. They're having a lot of difficulties. And as inflation grows and prices grow, a lot of things are hurting the agricultural industry that we don't recognize. So I think those kind of things come to the floor and get some municipalities like ours listening a little more carefully. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Dr. Van Clavering.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. There's another one of your strengths coming out in this, Alex. That's a great document. I really appreciate that. I think it's a super idea. Only trouble is with a committee is probably more committees come out of it. Maybe there should be a committee or a group like this in the commercial sector too, thinking of different ideas on how to attract businesses and so on. But no, this is good. I wonder if rather than reactive, it could also be proactive. They're just going to see things out there that we just don't see because we're not in it like they are. I think there's some real cool opportunities that they'll be able to dig up and present and suggest and refine and Councillor Rodriguez suggested not only just farms, but farm service businesses. There could be potentially a representative there too, someone in the offering services to farms and equipment and maybe something like that could be explored too. But great idea. I think it's highly important and I think it'd be a feather in our cap to get that rolling and get it going before the county does. So that's all I got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Clavering. Deputy, anything further?
No.
Councillor Bowden.
Sorry, I just want to add one more thing, just for if we do pass this motion, staff work on it. And the reason I was thinking specifically the voluntary advisory committee is I don't see this being a daunting thing for staff as a committee of council. I see this very much as a voluntary advisory committee. So staff are just going to get the report or council's just gonna get the report from the council liaison. This is not something that we need a secretary. At least that's the way I envision it, because I know our staff are busy. Yes, so I just want to make that clear that I don't see it as a committee of council, it's an advisory committee.
Everybody clear? All right, let's call for the vote. No further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Councilor Bojan. Okay, we're gonna go to item 6, council, the accounts. I have a motion by Councilor Bojan, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen. Council remuneration claims for June 2023 be approved for payment. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, council, we're gonna go to item 7. Staff reports. The first one is 7.1. A motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councilor Rodriguez, that the report by Ella Flynn, Executive Assistant Corporate Services, dated June 30th, 2023, regarding an naloxone kit policy be received, and that council approved policy number 65. Any questions on the report? Councilor Bojan?
I just have a concern or a question. I guess the first one is, are we sure we qualify for the free I mean, I don't think, based on what I've seen, I don't know if we qualify for the free training and the free naloxone kits as a high risk workplace. Source, does staff read that differently, that we are a high risk workplace, that we are eligible for this?
The understanding I was given by our executive AA, who does the HR research, was that we are eligible workplace as we provide emergency services, which would make both regular and emergency services staff eligible for the training. So I was given the impression that we would be eligible for the free training. If that's not the case, we would taper off the training and do it within our current budgeted values, instead of necessarily training large groups at a time.
And that builds into my other one, is I know that the fire departments are listed here, but there's naloxone kits on every med bag on every truck in the fire halls already, and the firefighters are already trained on that. So I don't know if we need to add more to the fire halls, especially since there's no staff there during regular time anyways. And it's the same with the Kamalaki Community Center. If it's a trained person has to use them, we don't really have staff at the community center either. So it would be an naloxone kit that just sits there to expire if no one can use it. So those are the locations that I was just a question, just to see why we're putting them there. And I'll let you answer that one first, and I have one more. And that'll be
So in regards to the Kamalaki Community Center, we, if the policy was approved, we would approach the Optimist Club to see if they'd want any of their bartending staff members trained. They are probably exposed to the most amount of people in the facility at any one time. So we thought it'd be appropriate to have one on hand in the case of a situation that may occur at a stag and do or a wedding or anything of that nature. That was line of thinking in including that facility on this list.
for sure. Yeah, and I agree, because Kamalaki Community Center and Wyoming Pool are the two that jump out at me as ones that are definitely could probably fit the high risk workplace. And my last piece is just the policy talks about injectable naloxone. Our firefighters aren't even trained for injectable naloxone. So I don't think injectable naloxone should be part of the policy. I think it should just be the nasal naloxone. Because I saw it in the policy. That's
If council chooses to support the policy as it sits today, you can just support it as amended, and we will remove any reference out of injectable naloxone and make sure that it's only the nasal spray that is utilized.
I think that's a very valuable point. Very important. Thank you, Councilor Bojan. I guess the other question I had, what about the wastewater management facilities do we have? Should they be considered down the road? Having it there?
Absolutely. Pharmaceuticals do go through wastewater in some fashion or form. That being said, technically, although we own the buildings, they're not our workplaces due to our contract with Jacobs. But I would definitely sit down with Jacobs management to discuss their policies in regards to these situations and see what is currently being done and if there should be more being done.
We have to do the fire and safety reports, and those are our fire extinguishers that are there and all that, aren't they?
they are responsible to carry out the safety inspections of those facilities while they are managing those facilities.
Okay. Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Your Worship. Which kind of, you're bringing that up with Jacobs. How does the Kamlaki Community Center work? Like, we own the building, but we're not managing it. It's like Jacobs.
We do manage the Kamlaki Community Center. The Optimists use it through a user group agreement. That user group agreement gives them the rights to utilize the hall for their own good. And to assist the town by providing bartending services and cleaning services. So the compensation, if you will, is that because they do all the cleaning and the supervising and the bartending, they get to use the hall at no cost. So it's more of a user agreement than a management agreement. The town is responsible to carry out the inspections and is responsible for the facility as a whole itself. So it's not technically a workplace, it is a public facility, and that's why we felt that it would be a reasonable place to put one of these kits in due to the higher level of risk being that there's larger gatherings of crowd in that facility.
So it is our responsibility with all those crowds.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess Mr. Sabansky's question did come to mind when I was listening to what Councilor Rodriguez was saying. Should councilors eventually be trained on that? Because if we host a meeting here, for example, like if Councilor Van Claveren does the Historical Society, just as an example, he is in the building, same as with Councilor Wolvette does cemetery or something like that. We are responsible when we're here. Should we eventually be looked at maybe being trained on that to spray as well?
For those counselors who attended the last round of first aid training, basic naloxone training was provided in an emergency situation. Obviously, these standards are a little higher to be a certified provider. But there was basic training provided. I would suggest that yes, counselors would benefit from the training and from eventually first aid training as a whole. As you yourselves are involved out in the community and during events here and other places where there's little supervision.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? I'm sorry, Councilor Wolvette.
Good.
Yes, with the mover and seconder, if I can just add as amended. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, council, next is going to be 7.2 procedure bylaw update. I have a motion by Councilor Van Claveren, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen, that the report by Aaron Kwarchuk, clerk, and Denny Giles, deputy clerk, dated June 29th, 2023, regarding the procedural bylaw update be received, and that bylaw 74 of 2023 be taken as having been read 3 times and finally passed. And the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Is there any questions on this? Councilor Wolvette?
Couple of things, looking at the land acknowledgement. The change in here, section 5.2. Is that mandatory at all meetings? Do you know, in the province or federally speaking? And does it have to be at every meeting? Like what I'm thinking is like, we have a lot of committee meetings. And yet all committee meetings go to council. All them reports go to council. So does it have to be read out at every meeting?
What I was going to share with you, Councilor Wolvette, I use the example of the county. It's read out at county council meetings, but any of our subcommittees, none, it's not.
That's my question.
It's
So,
only done at the regular meetings.
so we could do the same thing here, just at the main council meeting?
Couldn't we, clerk?
Yes, your worship, that's how it's worded in here. It shows the order of the agenda and it shows for council meetings. So it's just speaking to council meetings.
Okay, that's good. I support the wording. I just got all these meetings. Okay, that takes care of that. We had a Sacramento off the top of my head here. Ooh, what was it now? go to the next person, I'll get back to.
Nothing for me, sir.
Deputy Mayor.
It's on page 2 of 14. I had a member of the public call me up or email me rather. And ask if the deputy mayor, it's about halfway down, shall mean the member of council appointed to act in the place of the head of council, but that person thought I was elected and I didn't need to be appointed again. So I wondered if it was sort of
Redundant word. Yeah, we can look at that.
so if you want to just take it out, if it's not important, I don't care if you leave it in or out, but
Okay.
I'm gonna be deputy mayor anyway.
Yeah, I love it.
Counselor Bojan, anything?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Counselor Rodriguez? I just have one question on 3.7. It says public meeting shall be at 6 p.m. What would the example of that be, clerk?
A drainage meeting or a public planning meeting, a zoning bylaw amendment. Starting a meeting at 5, a lot of people can't attend. So while our council meeting is, yes, public, when we have a formal public meeting, it's at 6.
Like, great.
So people can attend drainage, planning, zoning amendments. When we did the public meeting about
Chickens?
considering of chickens, like we always try to put those meetings at 6.
That's seared in there, isn't it?
Mr. Sabansky?
Madam Clerk, so that would just mean public meetings as identified in legislation, not necessarily open houses or items such as that counts.
Open houses, yeah, don't really fall under the procedural.
It's not like committee of adjustment. They start at 5:15.
I mean, all of our meetings are public, so it is kind of I could change the wording to kind of redefine that if you feel you'd like that, but because all our meetings are public, it's just a public legislated meeting.
Maybe we should just use public legislated.
Sure, I can make an amendment. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Counselor Wolvet.
Yeah. I just remember what I was going to ask on the procedural bylaw to do with the meetings being recorded. What if, and we run into this just recently in some of it, what if we have to have a public meeting, say we had to have it at the Kamalaki Community Center and there is no camera available? Is there something in here that says that we can still proceed without the recording? I know the mayor can make some changes, but we just run into that recently. So if there's no camera and we have to have the meeting, do we have to cancel the meeting or can we still have it?
I think the clerk has an answer for us.
Yeah.
We just looked at that, Councillor Wolvet. So in section page 4 of 14.3.2. And 3.3, I guess, it talks about that it's held at council chambers is our meetings generally. However, they may be moved somewhere otherwise required in 3.2. And we would advertise that at the beginning of the agenda. And then 3.3 says some meetings may not be streamed and recorded due to specific circumstances. I mean, we have cemetery tour, park tour, like we're not streaming those meetings. So we kind of put that clause in there to cover in those circumstances.
And I would, like, what I was thinking was, say we're sitting here and down goes the camera, says, well, that, what you just talked about too, but this is all electronics, right?
Sure.
Breaks down, can we still proceed?
Yes, in the policy specifically about recording, it says that we will still proceed with the meeting, even if we have technical difficulties, if the power went out, whatever, we can continue with the meeting.
Thank you very
That's
much.
our policy. Yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wolvet. Any further questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, clerk team, for pulling that together and bringing us up to date. Yeah, next on the agenda, 7.3. Not-for-profit organization tax release request. A motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Bojan, that the report by Christine Houston, Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector, dated July 4th, 2023, regarding the not-for-profit tax relief requests be received and the relief of the municipal portion of the 2023 property taxes be approved for the Wyoming Lions Club, Model Lodge, Independent Order of Oddfellows, Harvest Time Bride Tabernacle. We have Miss Houston on the line with us. If any council has questions, I'm sure she's available to ask. I'll go to my right, Councillor Bojan.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Just one question, Your Worship.
Sure.
Have these all previously, oh, well, I'm sure the Wyoming Lions Club, but I'm not sure what some of these organizations are. They're all repeat?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Ms. Jewson, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. They all received this exemption last year.
Be sure. Deputy Mayor? Councilor Van Clever?
Nothing for me, sir.
Councilor Williams? Okay, no further questions. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Ms. Jewson, for your report. Okay, council, we're gonna go to 7.4. Motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Bojan. A report by Adam Spansky, Director of Public Works, dated June 30th, 2023. Regarding the proposal for engineering services for Confederation Line and Broadway Street intersection improvements be received. And that council endorses the installation of traffic lights. And that the proposal from Blue Water Power Service Corporation and RC Spencer Associates in it incorporated be accepted. Okay, we have Mr. Sabansky here who wrote the report. If there's any questions to my left, Councilor Willett.
I do have concerns with traffic lights being put at that corner. I thought about this since this agenda come out and my concerns about the backup of traffic, especially with that train there. I mean, I'm sure everybody here, when that train goes through and takes 3 to 5 minutes for it to go by, traffic backs up both ways. Lots of traffic way back, depending on the day. I see that happening here. Traffic is picking up, you get the train going across. And even traffic heading to the north may back right up to the tracks where the train's going. Also in this report, it's not recommended, not by the town and not by the county, to put any traffic lights there for 10 to 20 years, not required. It's the county, and now of course, they're passing the buck to us. If you want to do it, we'll support you, but you're going to pay the $200,000, which I also don't agree with. It's county roads. We tried to put the light out at Douglas Line, it was the same thing. Oh, yeah, it's our road, but we're not doing it if you want to pay for it. That's not the way it's supposed to work. The county told us when they do these studies, that's what they go by. They go by the studies, and if it doesn't require it, they don't do it. And I see the same thing here. So I just don't understand why we're doing it. I just think it's going to back traffic up. And some of the recommendations here about maybe taking away the crossing guard, I don't see that working either, because we had problems with the kids before and said they're not walking all the way down Confederation Street and coming back and heading out to the public school out there. That's why the crosswalk was put where it was. They wouldn't walk down to the restaurant and cross there. They were going down, crossing between the restaurant and Confederation Street. So say we may take that guard away, maybe you will, but I just don't see it. I just see it being a big traffic jam with putting a stoplight there at this point in time. Just my opinion. I'm not an expert, but the traffic studies show that too.
Councilor Lovett, I will make one comment. That crosswalk, I believe, was for the students going to Holy Rosary. Because the ones for Wyoming Public had the crosswalk here. So that's why we put there. I think we had a petition from some residents on Huron Street for their children that were going to Holy Rosary. They didn't want them coming all the way going back down there. So I believe that's why we did that. I understand your viewpoint on the backup of traffic, but I also just 2 days ago saw some people almost get hit again crossing that road. We've already had some accidents there. But that's just my viewpoint on it. I'm still open for discussion. Councilor Van Claveren, anything on that?
Yes, sir. I think I'm with Councilor Wolvett on that, that the studies and the county and so on are saying it's not remotely required at this time. One thing, just a point of interest, I do see a lot of parents that stop just south of that corner and take their kids out of the vehicles and then into the schoolyard. that's maybe not any of our business, but it's always struck me as a potentially unsafe situation, if they wouldn't mind just pulling into the parking lot that's provided for them at Holy Rosary. Although I do think there might be some daycare that's provided there too.
Daycare is on this end.
It is. It does make me nervous, though, to be honest. One of those little rascals started out and that's busy enough to cause issues, but that's probably all I'll have to say at this point, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, I tend to agree with the gentleman, both gentlemen on my left. Except I wonder if we could put no parking signs on that, from Confed up a little ways, because they're always getting out of those cars there. They're parking right there, and there's facilities just around the corner for them to use, and it's not near as dangerous. So we might want to consider that along.
That's county, isn't it?
It's a county road, so it'd have to be done in coordination with the county of Plympton, although parking is a town function. So it is our bylaw that controls parking there. So in theory, we could remove the parking, but we need to obtain the support of the county to do so.
I can see a few parents being irate on that one.
Just a thought on that. I don't have children at that school, but at a similar school, they may be being directed to come in that door because they can't come through the front of the school with adults during the school day. Like their doors are locked and secure, so they may be being directed to go to that side.
Is there a sidewalk on the back? And
I'm not
I'm just thinking that there should be a way to walk in there.
just saying they're probably being told to come that way.
And that could-
Bigger conversation.
That could be very true, but I don't know if that becomes our issue.
No, I just saying it would be part of the conversation to say,
Deputy Treasurer there, Justin, do you want to add to that?
Sure. My kids do go to that school and they have attended that daycare. After hours, you can park in the parking lot at Holy Rosary and walk through the back. However, in the morning drop off, that Holy Rosary parking lot is very, very small. There wouldn't be any parking spots left if all the teachers and the principal are already parked there. So if there was not a spot in the parking lot, then they would probably be parking along Huron Street and then walking along Broadway anyways. And there wouldn't be any parking along Broadway or along Confederation either. So it would likely cause an issue.
Thank you, Justin. Councilor Rodriguez?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with the previous three that I don't see it being a benefit by putting those lights in at this time. But I do think that other alternatives should be looked at as suggested by Deputy Mayor McEwen. Like the no parking, or maybe even designated parking, or only parking during this time, something. Obviously, it sounds very difficult to redirect the traffic. I know there's a school, the one school in Forest, where it's really tight in there and heavy traffic too, and no parking, and it's it's things people have to put up with, but maybe extra signage to warn of this, anything to help make it more navigable and safer for the children and the parents. I think we need to look at something like that to help solve the situation. But definitely, I mean, go to Exeter, go to any other small town. I mean, Forest, it only has 2 sets of lights and it's a lot bigger, a lot more economy going on there. Exeter, I mean, Petrolia, there's plenty of roads you turn left on the main drag there that, you got to sit there and people crossing. I mean, we can't control it all, unfortunately, but so anyway, that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Dr. Bowden?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I've got concerns just with, again, county stepping back from responsibility. in terms of installing streetlights for safety reasons on a county and township or town intersection. Just to clarify, it says it's $200,000 to install, but the total project, so are we talking 1.85 million over the 2 years? Is it, and county is saying they're not going to pay for any of that?
So through the mayor, if I may, the county of Lambton is going to pay for the restoration of the entire intersection. So we do need to cut through the intersection to do some sanitary sewer repair if we're going to be realigning this intersection anyways. And they confirmed that they would pay for all that asphalt restoration and the curbing, et cetera, that needs to be worked through. It just would not necessarily pay for the streetlights themselves or the traffic lights, sorry. So the traffic lights started to be discussed at a staff and council level after that 2017 report. Staff and council received a lot of complaints about that intersection, sightline hazards, children crossing. Our traffic report did identify it as deficient in crossing prior to putting a crossing guard at Huron Street. So in our capital plans and throughout the last 5+ years, staff have been working to consider putting a traffic lights at that intersection. If council does not want to move forward with traffic lights, that's their prerogative and we completely understand, and we will adjust the capital project accordingly and move forward.
The only reason I asked that is because I know the study was done in 2017 and clearly this community looks way different than it did in 2017. So I'm just thinking back to the other issue on Heritage with the street light. And we decided to make a motion to ask the county to reconsider based on the traffic study. I just think if the community's grown as much as it has, and it is a safety issue at that intersection, I don't think in any shape or form we should be paying all of the cost for a streetlight at a county intersection. So if that means asking the county if maybe take another look at it, because there's a lot more houses and cars on the road there than there was in 2017, and maybe we ask them to do that. It's like building a house on someone else's property. I just don't see why we're paying 100% of it on a county road. And that's my biggest issue with this. I don't think it would hurt for safety at that intersection by all means, but.
So staff has carried out 2 traffic reports on that. The first traffic report we did showed that yes, traffic was increasing, and with that always comes concerns in regards to safety. The second report we had RC Spencer do. RC Spencer did identify the need for traffic lights, but their methodology was not the same methodology that the county of Lambton utilizes. And that's why you'll see that note in regards to methodology in Mr. Deline's letter. So the county of Lambton did hire their own engineer to critique our study and had to carry out their own. And based on their methodology, found that the streetlights are not warranted in the immediate future. Yes, they could be warranted in the next 5, 10, 15 years, but at current levels, they are not. The reason we were choosing to do it now is due to the public complaints we've had in the past, the suggestions that for improvements for pedestrian purposes in the area, and the fact that we're already there doing a full reconstruction project. Again, if council feels that we are better to wait, and then we can shelve the intersection improvements and carry on with the water main improvements and the road reconstruction without necessarily carrying it out through the intersection.
Yeah, just one other thing I was thinking about too, and I might be all wet about this, but I could just see traffic backing up. We got the crosswalk lights. Now we want to put a set of traffic lights in. If emergency vehicles coming out of our fire hall have to head north, I can see traffic being backed up at those 2 sets of lights. I know they got sirens and they got lights, but if you've got traffic backing up both ways, 4 or 5 minutes, and all you gotta do, you don't have to believe me, stand out there when that train goes by and see how far traffic backs up in each direction. Emergency comes, then fire trucks got to get out. We put a set of lights there. I can see that creating quite a bunch of congestion. That's just me, but I sit and watch that traffic all the time with that train, and now you start adding lights that close to the tracks. I think you may cause some congestion. And by the way, I do agree that traffic has picked up through here. It is unbelievable how much traffic. Just watch the train and you'll see. So anyway, like I said, I'm not an expert, but the studies don't support it neither.
Councillor Rodriguez and Councillor Bowden.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate, I mean, the reports also state when you don't have enough traffic consistently, you're gonna have an increase in non-compliance. You can actually increase collisions. So you have to look at both sides of that when you're considering how to make that intersection safer and not have the end goal of making it more dangerous. So again, I just go back to, obviously, something needs to be addressed. It's clearly noted in these reports that it's only during certain times, and obviously it's school times are the biggest, you know, when the drop off and pick up are increased. So, you know, whether there's a designated area or warning of a school zone, or, I mean, I think you're supposed to have crossing guards anyway, for where you have a school zone. So I'm not sure why there's not a crossing guard here as well.
We have a crossing guard here on the street now.
You're just the street.
Yeah, but that's not there.
I don't think you want anybody with the amount of traffic that intersection, you wouldn't want to put anybody there. That's a really bad intersection.
There's a crossing guards on Exmouth Street, or I mean on Murphy and
You don't have-
Michigan, and you know, like, there are areas that are a lot busier than this that do have them.
You don't have transports coming in from Wild Heritage at 80
Oh,
kilometers an hour
You do have a
and
point
not
there.
gearing down until they're about Broadway service. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, and you do have a point with your, I forgot about your truck traffic.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a major trucking road, because
they just slow down.
yeah, we need to go there with the spike belts, yeah.
I'd save that for home.
And as far as firefighters go, I'm sure they have their way of going through. If traffic's busy, they can get through all right. My only concern, I live in the neighborhood. I know the traffic that goes through. I know there's near misses all day long there. That was my only concern. Mr. Sabansky?
So our original crossing report in 2017 did identify other improvements that could be made. One of those improvements was a crossing guard at that intersection. Council a year later decided for Huron Street based on the community's request and concerns. They also suggested that we could designate it as school zone. I did talk to Mr. DeLine about that. They also suggested that it could be dropped down to 40. Mr. DeLine and I discussed about that. They're not necessarily counting functions. So if the town would like me to proceed with working with the county to lower the speed limit and designate it a community safety or a school zone, I can bring a letter back for council to endorse next meeting, making that request to the county of Lambton, so we can start that process, if that's an alternative.
That might- Do fines double when you go through designated? Don't they double? So I mean, there's incentive there.
Where does the 40 start now?
Past that point,
Past the south of the school?
Pick up by Erie, isn't it? Erie
as well as the
Street,
community safety.
by Royal Leaf.
Yeah.
And we could also buy one of those cameras, things they have in London, put it right there. And they're raking in the dough in London. They're buying more of them. They're just like these portable things.
Since the town does not do police enforcement, it would be the local branch, the OPP, who would rake in the money on that.
Oh, okay, well. Damn it.
Is it very visible, one of those? Because I.
They are.
I see it.
They are very visible.
And is it warning ahead?
So let's move that count. Mr. Sabansky.
Okay. One other comment, I would not be comfortable with eliminating the parking. That parking is very well utilized, and if they don't park there, they'll park in other areas that are not any less or more so dangerous. I would suggest that when, if the school is expanded or changed, they will be required to come in for a site plan. At that time, they should be strongly encouraged to enlarge their parking, to give parents a proper drop-off area, to safely drop off their children. That is the exact same thing we did with Arrow Village School last year, and it worked very well. So that would be staff's approach on that situation. I would be very cautious to attempt to remove parking in that area without providing parking in another area.
Can we get the principal to park there?
And the other two.
The teachers? Yeah.
Okay, let's move this along. We still have some further information to go through tonight. So we've heard the motion as it states. I'll call for any other questions. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. Would you like Mr. Sabansky to go back to Mr. Deline and see about other alternatives for that intersection?
Yes, please.
Council's direction seemed to be clear during the discussion on that, so I will bring that letter back at a later date for.
I just hope and pray nobody gets hurt there. It's not nice to have on your conscience. Okay, council, we're gonna go to a supplementary one addition that we put on 7.5. Moved by Councillor Bojan, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez, that the report by Adam Sabansky, our Director of Public Works, dated July 11th, 2023, regarding the summer 2023 disaster mitigation and adaptation fund application be received. Council directs staff to submit an application for the wastewater collection improvements as outlined in the wastewater master plan. Did have a chance to read that. It was a little bit late. It's out there. Are there any questions for Mr. Sabansky? Yes, Mr. Sabansky.
I'd like to make one amendment to my report, in my haste to get the report to council. I put the total project cost in there. We are not applying for the complete project at this time. We are only applying for the cost of the regional pump station and the associated works. The total project cost for the regional pump station would be $3,399,000, and therefore the grant at 40% would be $1,359,600.
As for the regional cost of,
That is for the cost of the regional pump station only.
Okay.
And the associated works around it.
council good with that?
We will amend the report tomorrow, so what's out to the public will be correct.
Correct. Any questions for Mr. Sabansky? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, council, let's go back to our regular agenda. We have item number 8, councilor's report. Deputy?
Well, we'll start with Mr. Wolbert.
Thank you. I guess the only thing I'll report on is that we had the Progressive Ag Kids Safety Day in Petrolia last week. Very successful, about 250 people were registered with that. We had a dozen different stations. I learned how to milk a plastic dairy cow.
Classic one.
So got a lot of experience with Harry Van Weeren, the dairy farmer out the other side of Forest. So it was a very successful day and great for farm safety. So
So the kids could milk the cow, the plastic cow too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Practice?
that's all I have.
Mr. Van Claveren, you.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, we had a meeting yesterday morning on the Drainage Committee in regards to the Carmichael outlet improvement on Fleming Road on that direction. And so we had a couple of guests here and landowners and they had some great questions. We walked them through that with our engineer. So that was a good meeting. That's all I have to report at this time.
Great. Yes. Mr. Bougen.
Nothing to report on water or environmental committee because we meet after this meeting. But I will say the events committee had their Canada Day event 2 weekends ago. And it was a success. Lots of people came out, lots of council came out. So thanks for being there. And they are now working on August 12th, which is a community safety day with a water ball tournament with the firefighters. So they're working on that one now.
Will there be other activities along with the water ball?
Yeah, they're working on figuring out what else to add.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's everything for me.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. I just had the Lambton County Regional Trails Committee meeting. So in there, there was great progress made on updating the maps, all the trails for Lambton County. So I'll be actually talking a little bit more about that under new business as it relates to our trails here. We talked a lot about signage. on the trails and the want for each individual municipality to maybe update their signage at the trail, at their own trails that they're responsible for. In relation to ringing your bell, there was some sort of really good catchphrase about a bell. I can't remember it for the life of me.
At least a warning for people walking on the trail.
Yes. Yeah, it was something really good and I can't remember.
Better that you did forget.
It might have been really quirky, I don't know.
Yes.
So there was a want for that, especially because we have a lot of speedy riders and we have the whole e-bike situation. But then there's the problem with people wearing their earbuds too, not listening and being aware. So there was kind of a lot of discussion around that, the need to look at that to keep the trails safe in our new climate of outdoor active people.
So the signage that you want each town to put up, are you going to supply the signs? Is there, trails?
No, the Lambton County Regional Trails Committee doesn't have any money because none of the municipalities give to this committee apparently. So we're here to encourage you
Okay,
to keep your trail safe.
yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Deputy. Since our last meeting, I had a meeting with Laws. And the okay was given ahead of schedule to proceed with the work on Confederation. We want to thank my fellow mayors and the committee for allowing Plympton-Wyoming to do that and move their schedule ahead to coincide with the work that we're going to be doing on Confed. It only makes sense to replace everything when it's all ripped up. So I want to thank them for that. Unfortunately, I had to leave the meeting halfway through it. Councillor Case and I had a meeting in London that afternoon with the Minister of Transportation relating to our ongoing CN issue. A very productive meeting. I think I've shared that with most of you. If I haven't, I do apologize, but it's very sympathetic, very understanding, and is going to see what he can do from his end on it. We are also going to be at AMO, our Case and I are waiting to hear confirmation of our meeting with the Minister of Agriculture. And we're working on some ideas on taking the step to the next level. It will be a David versus Goliath thing we'll be working on. And finally, I want to thank the Special Events Committee for the success of Canada Day. It was from some outsiders that have shared with me, it was one of the best in Lambton County, although it was extremely warm. But it was a very good event, and to all those that spent the extra effort and did the time to put it together, congratulations to them. So that's all I have, Deputy. Do you have anything?
No, I haven't, I've been very lazy, I guess. I don't have much to report, so. That's, I guess, the end of the, what about any staff? They have anything exciting to report? No? Okay,
That's it.
we're done.
Probably you'll be busier next month.
I expect.
All right. Council, let's go back to item number 9, committee meetings and reports. I have a motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Bojan, that the minutes be adopted by council, and that those confidential minutes of the closed sessions remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exceptions provided in municipal freedom of information and protection of privacy. That would be our special fire exec committee meeting minutes of June the 5th, special events committee meeting minutes of June the 5th, Court of Revision on June the 28th. That was the O'Brien Branch A drain and the Carmichael Drain Branch C extension. We have chairman in the fire and special events, as well as our draining. Is there any questions? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, council, we're going to go to item 10, bylaws. Organizational appointment bylaw. I have a motion by Councillor Bojan, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen, that bylaw 75 of 2023, being a bylaw to appoint officers, board and committee members and employees of the same of the corporation, town of Plympton-Wyoming for 2026 be taken as having been read 3 times, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. I believe we've made a change. There was an addition added to the special events committee. That's why we had to go back through that again. Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, item 11, correspondence. Clerk, anything under that?
Nothing for action required.
Okay. Let's go to item number 12. I have a motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Bojan, that correspondence items relating A to N relating to recommended reading, routine approval and information items not otherwise addressed by resolution be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Council and filed accordingly. Council items A to N. Is there anything you'd like to pull out or address? To my right first, Councillor Bojan.
I think the only thing I wanted to bring attention to, I can't remember which item, I think it was. There's a licensed childcare information session tomorrow, I believe, in Forest. I just wanted to bring attention to that. It's a pretty good initiative to bring awareness to starting a childcare service. I just want to bring attention to that. But I don't want to pull it or anything.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Rodriguez,
Nothing for me, thank you.
Councillor Wolbeck.
Yeah, the only thing I have is in. I think it's information only for us to understand what some of the new provincial policy are and guidance on permitted uses in prime agricultural areas on farm business. I think it's just an information item, but quite interesting, a good read, and support some of the things that are going on some of our farms. And we talked about the committee. There's a great example of diversification and what farmers are trying to do to survive. So, yeah, good reading.
Anything else, Councillor Wolbeck?
Just a 2023 Forest Fair sponsorship request. Have we had any? Do we usually support any of that in our?
I'm going to have to defer to staff on that one. I know most of the fairs have gone now to sponsorship instead of going out for looking for different classes or different categories. They look for the total fair sponsorship. I'll have to refer even to Treasury on that. Do we have?
So we do give a grant to them in our grant
That's
section.
what I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's already taken care of.
Good. That's already budgeted. Thank you. That's all I have.
But do they get bus? For,
This, the town gives it the Wyoming Fair. Fall Fair. Is that
so
what
they're asking. Funds for the forest, do they give to the Wyoming?
So in our
We all
budget,
give to
we
each
give
other.
to both Forest and Wyoming.
Sure.
Yes. Thank you. Lambton Shores.
I don't know the answer. That's what you're asking, right?
Yes, the back and forth. We give to each other. Thank you.
Councillor Van Clever, do you have anything?
Nothing for me, sir.
No, sir.
I have nothing. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Any new business? Item number 13, Councillor Wolbeck.
I will bring up one item today, sir, and that is, it's been brought to me several times. Once again, brought to me the other day about parking in front of, on Broadway Street in front of Bobby's Restaurant. There is a sign right there that says parking from here to corner, and the curb there is cut out for accessibility and stuff like that, but people are parking right up to the corner. There's a couple of 3 people use that, try to get their buggy up. So I think maybe a little bit of enforcement there. Communication, whatever you want to call it, you can see it every day, park right to the corner, and those people on their little buggies, they have to go around and come up the other way, so.
They're probably venturing into the intersection back on on 10th Street too, if they can't get up there.
So I had no choice but to bring it here today. I was requested to bring it and I didn't. I've also told the individuals, please call town hall also. It'll just support what you're telling me. So that's all I have for today.
Van Claveren?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might just follow up, Adam, how's things coming along with Plympton Street? I see they're getting close to Broadway there, which is good. I did have one comment that there's an alleyway in behind, are you familiar with where I'm going with that? The Armstrongs there and some folks are taking liberties and driving across lawns and I don't know if there's much we can do there, but thought I'd bring it to your attention.
So my understanding from discussion at the pre-consultation meeting with the property owners is that the property, without naming names, at the end of the street had offered to his neighbors to park in their grassed area. I do understand that some of the neighbors are using the grass in the municipal alleyway to access that land. Provided that they are only crossing the municipal property or the property who has voluntarily given for them permission to use their lands. The town does not have any objection to that unless the property owner does, and then obviously we'll work with them to stop that practice.
Okay. I might ask you to check in with them. Just make sure they're okay. Yeah.
Okay, I will check in with those property owners.
Thank you.
I can add to that. I believe I spoke to Mr. Little about that earlier in the week about, and he was to look at that because I think they're using the alleyway and there's a telephone guide wire there that's might have been some mechanical vehicles running up and down there.
Yeah, and there's, from what I heard, there's some bushes kind of encroaching on the alleyway, which then forces them onto the lawn and there's a lot of little kids down there.
And we'll have our site representative follow up directly with the property owner and then I'll follow up immediately after to make sure that that's been taken care of.
Appreciate that.
Deputy Mayor? Yeah, just one question, couple from me. Clerk, I believe we have Maggie Eastman scheduled to come sometime next few months to give us a report on the Plympton seniors as our representative.
So I spoke to, drawing a blank on the name of the staff member at the county that's working with the seniors advisory committee.
Right.
And she did say they're working on how they're going to bring that information back to council. Whether they give us a report and we invite Maggie to be here to speak to it. But I know I think it's coming in the next few months,
Right.
correct? I'm just not sure in what format.
Yeah, I think we'd like to have had Maggie come here to make so we can reach out and introduce ourselves and.
Yeah, I'm not
be the liaison.
Yeah, I'm not sure how often they had met. I think when I first messaged, they hadn't met yet, so they're just.
I believe I saw minutes that they have met.
Have met,
once. Yeah.
once, yeah, okay.
Okay, and I had some concerns expressed to me once again about the traffic speeding through the hamlet of Lackey. And I know the first of the week there was extra traffic going through because of the accident up on the 402 there. And it got diverted through, but have we put the speed signs up in Kamlaki lately, Mr. Sabansky, or?
If they haven't been, they get put on a list based on when the requests come in. So we go by in order of request. They may have been already out there. I wasn't here last week. But we can re-add that property, that area to the request if it needs to go back out in the near term.
There's one at Avon?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm seems like it's monthly, I'm getting phone calls from similar individuals concerned about safety, and obviously it is a concern on Ackerman going between.
I'm like, doesn't me.
All road.
Between it, we'll discuss it later.
Oh.
And I was asked, what would the procedure be to create a bike riding lane from Kamlaki to Oil Heritage Road? There's a lot of bikes that use that, pedal bikes that use that road, and I know there's been some near misses when there's traffic, even some of our workers working along the side of the road. Mr. Spansky, you know,
Along Kamlaki Road.
along Egremont.
Similar to what you currently see in the village of Arrow Village and to the west there. The hasn't been considered in a number of years because previous council has directed staff to not do it until the road is reconstructed. The ditches in that area are really narrow, so it'd be quite challenging to put a lane in independently due to the lack of land and the weaving nature of the road in that area. We can, if council sees that as a priority, it can always be moved up on the list and we can add it to our projects to do in the future. We have been getting away from multi-purpose trails and getting towards paved shoulders. Paved shoulders are easier to maintain as the plows themselves do it as they drive by. You don't have to have specialized equipment to do the work if you use a multi-purpose off-road path. So generally, I would suggest that given the age of the road, that if we were to look at expanding the footprint of the road, that we look at reconstructing that section of roadway at the same time. Otherwise, we'd be back in 5 to 10 years, just redoing the road again anyways.
Because we did that from Kimlaki, on Kimlaki side road from number 7 to Confed. Did we not expand those shoulders a bit, put asphalt down there? A year or so ago, or a few years back.
Lackey Side Road to
On Kimlaki side road from London line. Confed, past the Buffalo branch. Did we not?
No, I don't think we have any paved shoulders in Lackey Side Road, sir.
Yes, Councilor Rodriguez. sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that if I may to that, Mr. Lakeshore Road is another very popular road for what you're talking about. And the county in their reconstruction of Lakeshore Road is adding those paved shoulders to their road. So that's gonna be a tremendous help. It'll be quite busy, but the mayor is right. A lot of those roads in the north end, even Michigan, Egremont, Michigan's a big one, are heavily used by bicycle traffic. So it would be nice, maybe something to look at in our strategic priorities.
Mhm.
For sure.
Previous council has always concentrated on the paved shoulder system in the higher populated areas, less so the rural areas due to the lower traffic counts in the rural areas. It has always been council's plan to have paved shoulders in that area. It's just, again, council have wait until we rebuild the road. And anytime we rebuild the Egremont Road or any road in those semi-urban areas, they always get paved shoulder, a single paved shoulder to accommodate active transportation.
What's the target? When did you think that was going to be looked at?
We're not currently on the 5 to 10 year capital plan,
So it's,
but I would suggest it would need to be done within 10 years. So it'd be in the 5 to 10 year mark.
okay. Anything else? Councilor Bolton?
I've got one item. I know I talked to Mr. Spansky about this earlier, but just benefit, I think there might be a couple people on Michigan line looking for information. To go back to the tender that we gave to Sevcon for Michigan Line Phase 2. We were looking at doing the road reconstruction from O'Brien to Fleming. And in the tender, it was 1 kilometer east of O'Brien. Of course, that's not all the way to Fleming. But then in the tender that we awarded, it was about just under $230,000 difference because Sevcon came under what we budgeted. So there was conversation about adding 2024 work to this year.
Yes.
And in the letter that was sent out to Michigan Line residents was that segment from O'Brien to Fleming was being done right now. And they've been told it's not happening. So I'm just wondering what happened. I know you kind of briefly started to explain that there was some issues with the soil depth or something, but I'm just wondering how we went from having 229,000 extra to do more work to now we can't do the full segment to Fleming.
So we are still going past what we initially budgeted for in this year. So we will be going past that 1 kilometer distance. The extra funds that we thought we had at the close of the budget were based off of a standardized depth of gravel that had to be put back in. Unfortunately, we found through the early portion of that project that the depth of topsoil under the road was much deeper than we saw in the boreholes, or sorry, the test pits we dug. So we had to use a lot more gravel to rebuild the road in those areas, which lessened the amount of material or money we had to move further down. So because the contract is based on quantities, not on a lump sum, the distance we were able to go lessened because we had to use more funds in the early portion of that project.
Thank you. And then, so just to add, so that tender, that would have changed even the second lowest tender, because that was all based on what SEPCON bid.
Everything was based on the same quantities. It was all based on the same estimated quantities, but that contract, everyone is paid on the actual quantities utilized. And that is why there's a differential between the tendered values and the end values.
And my final question, just because I know that's gonna be the next question that anyone gets, is, so does that mean that 600 meters that's left between O'Brien and Fleming, is that now going to be done right away when the next phase starts in 2024? So is it going to be that 600 meters plus east of Fleming?
Yes, the next phase of Michigan Line will be as far as the budget allows us to take us next year. So we hope to carry on another full block, which may be mid-block now to mid-block, but we do plan to carry on with as much each year as we can for the approximate same prices we're spending now for the $750 to $1 million per year to get that road done to Oil Heritage.
So the residents can expect it to be next year.
We are going to continue until we get to Oil Heritage.
Thank you. That's everything I had. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's everything. Thank you.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I have a few items. As I mentioned before, at the Lantern County Regional Trails meeting, they've made great progress in updating the maps. So there was one particular item on our maps where they could not get confirmation as to who requested that the section in Kamlaki, I think it's where you live, be added as a trail. So it's on this map in orange. So maybe I can leave it with you so basically when we're endorsing maps, we're working with the county. Peter Corbett, who's the GIS gurus, he's the one doing this. They need some sort of backup documentation because these are called assets, obviously, we learned about assets. So you have to have some sort of documentation as to whose assets they are. And he could not find any documentation to back up this addition. And it looks like it kind of is just that whole front corner there of Kamlaki.
Where it was on the trails.
No, it wasn't, and someone's requested it be put on, but there is no documentation.
Even if it isn't, they all use it.
Because once the sidewalks got added, right? I think that's following the
So
sidewalks.
sidewalks wouldn't necessarily be a trail
No.
system, right? So,
I believe the trail committee is following up on council's previous endorsement to extend a trail to Kamlaki and to place sidewalks along Lake Shore up until the community center. There is a motion on the floor that has given directed staff to plan to do so. And we've been attempting to find funding for that through grants to do that. But we have not found appropriate grants at this time to do that. So it's in the town's capital plan to do that work. If there's just no set time to do that work at this time.
But he means a cycling trail though. You're talking about sidewalks or a walking trail, like a continuation of the Howard Watson. But she means.
well, no, so a trail, which would be a multi-use trail system. So I don't know that we're talking about that same thing, because they don't extend that line where you're talking about from the trail to nowhere to Kamlaki. This is like a triangle around Kamlaki, and it looks like where the sidewalks are. Have been put in.
It's going past my place and then up. Lucky sidewalk.
Sidewalks are,
That's the sidewalks. That's what I said. That's exactly where the sidewalks.
Yeah, and sidewalks wouldn't be a trail system, so should I mean, I guess I leave it up to you guys. I'll give it to you because you're staff, right? To direct back to them that you can't confirm, or like you can confirm it's sidewalks, but not a trail system.
The sidewalks are meant for pedestrians, not for bicycles. So yeah, it's probably not appropriate to have it on the multi-purpose trail mapping system.
And you would have sidewalks in another section of your asset management in your, as part of your municipality, so it would fall under this anyway. Is that correct? Yeah, okay, so I'll leave that. I don't know if anybody else received the email, but somebody was inquiring about whether we were have we discussed cannabis retail stores in our jurisdiction?
Mr. Roach.
Yes, that would be correct. So I know our council has never discussed. I know a previous council has opted out on the subject. And I don't know if my response was, I've never had any inquiries or anybody asking. I don't know if anybody else has, so that's why I was bringing it up, if there was any interest in having it in the community. So, so I'm just bringing it up.
I do know, Counselor, that I was approached by the same individual. And I had indicated that the previous council had said no. For various reasons, including one that was 2 or 3 stores just down the road from us. So if the decision was made at that time, no, we weren't interested.
Right.
That's all I said to him.
Yeah, so I'm just bringing it up. If nobody's still interested, well, there's your answer.
You got the same email.
Okay, and speeders are the topic of the night. Which includes Blue Point. So I have an email, and we do have problems in there. I've had a lot of people ask if the speed limit could be reduced in those hamlets, all those adjoining hamlets. You know, whether it can be looked at of putting speed bumps in, you know, all different types of scenarios too. I'm not saying we have to do any of that. I'm just saying this is what's coming to me quite often, because there is so many new children in the area. So many new families in the area because of all the extra development. We have the 2 campgrounds who love to drive through that neighborhood with a lot of disregard for the fact it is their neighborhoods. So the other ask was because Sunset Acres is almost directly across from Paradise Campground, where they'd often come in through not knowing where they're going. Quite often they'll be speeding through there and turn right and go right into that cul-de-sac, the one we were just talking about, where you're going to pave there. They were asking if maybe a no exit, or there is no exit, you know, this way, where you see quite often when there's cul-de-sacs, like you can't get anywhere. So, you know, it's causing a lot of burnouts and turnarounds in that cul-de-sac too, aggravating the situation. So that was one of the asks as well. And I don't know in general, because it's just such a huge area of dense population in the middle of nowhere, kind of, that we kind of need some sort of look at the traffic in those subdivisions.
Thank you.
And that would be it.
Mr. Sabansky, thank you. No, but
There's a sign at the cul-de-sac is definitely something that Public Works can do. It makes sense. So that will be done in months. Speed bumps, Public Works is not supportive of speed bumps. They are operational challenge specifically for winter, and temporary ones are also a challenge for theft and damaged cars. Although we have areas of 40 km/h in town, technically Public Works does not necessarily support going below 50 km/h. What we found is whether the speed limit is 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, you always get speeders. So speed limit sign adjustments don't typically reduce speed, they just increase speeding. So we don't typically support them. That being said, council can have me lower the speed limit as they see fit, and we will do what we're asked to do. The only way we found that if any effective way to reduce speeding is increase police enforcement. The best way for a community to get that increased enforcement is to bombard the OPP's online reporting. That tends to get at least some short-term observations. And of course, we do have the speed sign trailer. If the residents want to call the municipal office and have their roads put on the list for the speed trailer, we'll ensure it gets out to their properties.
With the speed trail,
We have a radar trailer that displays your speed as you drive.
slow down, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
So I just want to say there is a lot of OPP that live in the neighborhood and we're still having a problem. So if we can look at other measures, that would be wonderful. Because they're out working, you know. They can't be there all the time.
I'm in a hurry to get home.
Any spike belt, okay? Thank you. All right. Anything else under new business? Okay. Go to item 14. A motion, we're going to be going to a closed meeting session. A motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen. That council move into an in-camera meeting of council pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001. Is amended for the following reasons. Item A. Litigation matters. Section 239, bracket 2, bracket E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And item B, personal matters, section 239, bracket 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Council, we're going to take a 10-minute recess before we will come back for in-camera. Good night. Heather.